Hello and welcome back to Taking Time with Tasha. Thank you for joining me if this is your first time. It's a pleasure to have you here. Today I'm going to be working on this piece here, just working with a little bit of lettering, also known as monogramming. And so I thought I would work on my own title. Why not? So I'm going to start with the serif lettering up the top here and then work down to the script lettering below in a little bit, probably in the next video. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about how I got into embroidery in the first place. I know it's a hobby for many that a lot of people really enjoy, and I definitely was one of those people, but there aren't that many people that make it into their job. So if you were wondering how I might have got here or be thinking about it for yourself, then this might be of a bit of interest to you. I think I was probably always destined to have some sort of creative job. I was very keen on art when I was at school, and just always really enjoyed making things, and I was always making things on the weekend. I did loads of craft kits with my mum, and she's been a real sort of encouragement, particularly in the creative side of my interests. And so, from school, I mean, by no means was I the best at art at my school. I'm not that incredible an illustrator now at all. I enjoy drawing, but it's not, that in itself is not my passion per se. And so then I definitely wanted to keep up the creative pursuits when I went to college to do my A-levels. But I was reasonably academic at school, and so I did end up taking a little bit of a mixed bag when it came to my A-levels. I sort of kept my options very open, particularly at least for the first year. And then we were encouraged to take another AS level for the second year of college, and I chose to pick up another creative subject, which was in the form of textiles and fashion, as I was already taking art full A level. Otherwise you had to take something like critical thinking, and well, I don't know how many people found that useful, but that didn't seem like the best use of my time. So I took on another AS, which was a lot of work, but I do think it was worthwhile in the end, as from there I was then going to take an art foundation at university, and I got into my first choice, which was wonderful because I did have a little bit of a wobble at this point because I wasn't 100% sure, and because I'd been taking so many academic A-levels as well. I took biology, English literature and maths, so that real mixed bag, that I didn't really know if I was doing the right thing. And then one of my art teachers, well actually both of my art teachers, were not that encouraging or not that sure that basically I would get into an art foundation. And so that did kind of wobble my confidence a little bit at that point of, am I doing the right thing pursuing art when or the arts in general, when, people advising me are really not sure that I can do this. But nonetheless, I did apply all the same, and I did get in. and took my first choice, which was to go to Chelsea School of Art to do my art foundation. And there, again, they had fashion as an option, fashion and textiles as one of the pathways, but there was also like interior spatial design as one of the pathways, and illustration and painting as another. So I knew, again, my options were still a little bit open by going to Chelsea for what I then went on to do. But I was still quite taken with the fashion and textiles side of things, having done that pathway for the term where you take all the different pathways, and decided that I would take that as my specialism for the rest of the year, which is the other 2 terms. And once again, they thought I was fine, I think, but nothing particularly exceptional. So once again, I was sort of encouraged to hedge my bets when it came to applying for BA degrees, because I decided I wanted to take textiles further. I was definitely interested in stitched art and embroidery and stitch in general. And I think I was making some interesting works, but again, nothing too groundbreaking. And yeah, so once again, my tutors weren't super enamoured, and again encouraged me to apply to places that I really wasn't that sure on, but they thought would be easier basically for me to get into. But once again, I did somewhat go against their recommendations and applied to not one but 2 of the universities in the Creative Arts London group, one of which was London College of Fashion, which again was my first choice because their textiles course had an embroidery specific pathway that I could once again specialise in, which was all I really wanted, was to do embroidery by this point. I really felt like that was my calling. And so, yeah, once I got into there, I did go and joined LCF, which was kind of where I'd wanted to be all along. I'm not really sure why so many of my tutors were not sure that I was cut out to do this sort of thing, but nevertheless, that's how it went. And then when I got to LCF, once again, you go through 3 pathways to try out the different specialisms you can do. That all happens in your first year, so you spend a term in each. And yeah, it was really interesting because I started off with print, and I thought that print was kind of still maybe what I was after, but I really joined the course because it had embroidery. And then I did the print term, and I have to say I did not love it. Print is wonderful, but it's going to sound really sort of princessy to say this, but the print room, is always quite cold and wet because of a lot of the things that you have to do, cleaning up your frames and all that sort of thing with printing. So I wasn't so keen on that. You were always messy, and I didn't particularly like that either. So then we did knit next, and I was surprised by knit actually, because I've never been a knitter and I'd never used a knitting machine in my life. But using the knitting machine, I feel like I produced good work that term. Definitely sort of came into my own a lot more than I had in the first term. And so in that term, I was like, oh, maybe this is for me. And then we did embroidery in the final term. And I really did think, yeah, this is the one for me. This is the reason I'm here. And I'd been a little bit frustrated that it wasn't until my final term that I was getting to try out the pathway that I was really interested in. But yeah, now I feel like it was definitely worth the wait. So from there, you specialise in your chosen subject, and I continued on the embroidery pathway. And initially, I did find it quite difficult. I thought it would really be like, kind of like coming home, going into the embroidery pathway. But it was surprisingly tricky to start off with, and I didn't kind of immediately find my feet, which again was a little bit disconcerting. You do wonder if you've done the right thing. In that second year though, I did really sort of find my feet with one of the themes that we were set, and really sort of like was like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. I worked on a project that was kind of about like decaying decadence. You sort of had to pick from this list two different periods of time and combine them. And so bringing my two together, I feel like I produced some really good work from that. And to be honest, I could have worked on that for the whole year had I been allowed. But then nevertheless, that term and that project came to an end. And I was marked quite well for it. So at least I was starting to think, oh yeah, the tutors are starting to see what I'm feeling. It's starting to come across in my work. But then also in second year, we had to do a group project. And I have to say, I found that such a challenge. I think it obviously is supposed to be a challenge for everybody, but working within that group really was so difficult. And once again, I was sort of left feeling like maybe I can't work with people. You know, how can I ever be a textiles designer if I can't work with people? Because, you know, textiles designers are always supposed to be working with the fashion designer or the interior designer, or, yeah, they're always usually working in conjunction with somebody else. And I was like, well, if I can't work with these people, who can I work with? Anyway, that project did not go so well. And it did sort of damage my confidence a little bit once again. As I was wondering again, what am I doing? And I did actually look at leaving my course at that point, because I thought that I must be the problem with all of these things. And so I looked at kind of what other degrees I could get onto with the A-levels that I had, if it wasn't going to be art and textiles and the course I was already on. But I stuck it out in the end, and I did go into my third year, which was definitely the most challenging of them all. Like, people tell you about third year, and you know it's going to be hard. Of course you do. But it was really hard, I have to say. And I don't think I realised until afterwards how much of a toll it had taken on me. But again, we got through that and got it done. And I was really pleased with my final major project. And it's did somewhat cement what I had thought about myself as a designer. And I was chosen to... So I'd put in for... I should go back a little bit. I'd put in for a side project alongside the work I was already doing for a competition where you would be paired up with somebody else from another pathway. so from like menswear or women's wear. And with them you would create a piece that was then, you know, going to be professionally photographed, so it could go in your portfolio and all that sort of thing. That was the draw. So I put in for that, amongst other competitions, to be honest, that I did over the course of the year. There was some illustration competitions as well that I entered. Anything I could enter, I really did. And then when I was, so I did get into that competition, and I was paired up with a women's wear designer who ended up working really well together, and I think we produced some quite cool work from it. The photos that we had from the piece we created together was really good fun, and our work was definitely better together than it was apart. I think that's the key to this. She had some really great sort of overall shape thoughts, and the things that she was creating were really beautifully oversized and lots of ruffles, and it was all really cool. But she had these kind of big swathing areas of fabric that, you know, didn't have a lot going on in them. And that's really where I could come in and take over those areas and fill it with some really beautiful, interesting embroidery, and sort of kind of make it into something else. And it gave me this big canvas to work on, and it gave her piece, her clothing, this like extra punch. And so then, yeah, we worked well together on that one. And after our project there, then we together were chosen to show our work in the end of year show, which was a huge honour. It was kind of like the crux of being at LCF, is that you have this big industry show, and LCF doesn't show at Graduate Fashion Week. Obviously this is in pre-COVID times. So yeah, getting into the final end of year show is like a massive deal. And so then I still had my final major project that was entirely mine, and that collection that was mine, which was great. But I also was working on my other project with this women's wear designer and embroidering onto her collection and designing parts of that together. And it obviously meant it was a lot more work, but it was like you also got tuition and guidance from the dean of the college, so, and he was obviously quite hard to get a one-on-one with, so it was always very scary, but it was great to be able to show work directly to him and get his take on things. And you know, he really wasn't afraid to entirely poo-poo what you were saying and what you were working on, but equally sometimes he'd be like, I love this tiny section of it. And so then you'd have to try and expand on that one tiny section. So that was always tricky, sort of pleasing him. But it was something all the same. Certainly interesting to do. And yeah, so the show went pretty well in the end. I was really, really pleased with the pieces that we created together. They were entirely different from my own collection and absolutely better. There's no doubt about that. But at least I then sort of had like 2 collections to leave uni with. And so I had obviously a lot of photos, an awful lot of work to show. So that was definitely, you know, really heartening and encouraging. And we got a little bit of press from the show, but nothing like too major. she really had the makings of like a really good commercial designer. And so that is what she went into in the end. And I, at that point, had discovered this company called Hawthorne and Heaney that I thought were doing really cool things, and I just really wanted to be a part of it. And I did quite a few internships during my time at uni. I think I ended uni with 5 internships under my belt, because I spent every Easter and summer holiday doing internships and working so that I could build up as much experience as I possibly could. So when I came to we did an industry term in our second year as well, where you had to go and do an internship. But for a lot of people, that was their first internship, as for me, it was my third by that point. So getting an internship then was relatively easy for me because I had experience of where I wanted to go, and anywhere I did go and apply to was quite keen enough to meet me because I already had internship experience. So yeah, with my intern experience from my time at uni, I then had said to myself, right, now you've got to go and you need to value your skills, and you can't be doing any more internships now. Next, you've got to get a job. And this was really the point that I was a bit like, this is make or break, isn't it? Because if you can't get a job at this stage, then it's all sort of been for nothing. Even if you did get into the show and whatnot, like, they're good measuring sticks, but the actual like goalpost is getting a job in this industry. And so I applied to Hawthorne and Heaney even though they didn't have any vacancies, and I was told by the boss that she didn't have any vacancies, she didn't need anyone, but I could intern. And initially I was like, no, I don't want to intern anymore, and was trying to avoid it. But I think after finishing the show, which was after everything else had finished for uni, my uni course had already finished by that point. It took me, I think, 20 days to just be like, I have to be doing something that's at least a little bit towards my future. And so, yeah, 20 days in, I was like, okay, at least an internship will be working towards what I want to do and give me something to do. I need to be working on something. I need to be working towards my goal of getting a job in embroidery. So at least if I'm interning in embroidery, then I'm heading in the right direction. I'm sure you can see my thinking. And so I started interning at Hawthorne and Heaney, which was wonderful, and I just loved it. I loved all the things that I got to work on. I loved, the sort of feel of the studio. It was quite a small studio. I loved getting to know the people that I was working with. They were really good fun, and we all sort of got along, but we were still, producing good work, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want. But that still doesn't make me a job, And so my time was coming to an end at Hawthorne and Heaney. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now? So I had applied for another internship at a couture house in London, which sounds incredible, but I hadn't been that sure about the place when I went for my interview/trial day. They'd been very haphazard, and I don't know, again, just wasn't really sure about the feel of the place. And then I finished up at Hawthorne and Heaney, and Claire was saying to me that she didn't want me to go and was trying to work out basically a way to employ me, which was obviously amazing. It's exactly what I wanted, but it wasn't quite there yet. What she was working on would be, a part-time position, but again, it wasn't quite ready. She hadn't fully got the terms of an agreement together yet. And so I still kind of had to leave. And so I did leave and went to this couture house. And I did my first day there, and it was just, it was not good. They really did, it made me feel so small, and it was just like such a world away from Hawthorne and Heaney and the really lovely experience that I had had there, and just found myself as, again, a bit of a fish out of water. I felt like nothing I could do was right, and I don't know, talking to some of the other interns there, I was a little bit like, ooh, none of you guys seem that enamoured. And the draw was that supposedly after 3 months of interning at this couture house, there would be a potential opportunity for a position. But it was all very theoretical and quite confusing. And so I decided that that wasn't going to be for me. And I didn't really see the point in trying to sort of flog a dead horse. I'd got this sort of, again, theoretical position possibly going at Hawthorne and Heaney, but I just needed the specifics of it. And if I could hold out for the specifics of that, then I would have my job, which was all I really wanted. Join me again next time when I continue working with this piece and also continue with my story. So hopefully catch you in the next video. Bye for now.